What is going on, baseball fans? Welcome to Baseball as Intended, episode 2. Happy February, John. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy February to you. It's my birthday month. Pretty excited. Uh, excited for episode 2.
I thought you were excited because we're a month closer to World Baseball Classic, to opening day, to new rules. All of these are topics that we're going to be talking about. But you're thinking about your birthday.
That as well. That as well. Absolutely excited. Um, every day gets closer. I mean, there's nothing left. We got Super Bowl Sunday coming up, and then after that,
It's our
it's all
time.
baseball.
It's
Yeah,
our
it's all
time
base.
to
I mean,
shine.
people could say basketball. I'm going to dismiss that. No offense to basketball. It's baseball.
Yeah, I think that's when baseball fans in general kind of like, okay, it's our time, right? After the Super Bowl, that's
Yes.
when we kind of like come in and try to shine, and that baseball will do, especially with the WBC this year. We're gonna start a little bit sooner. It feels like, but there's a ton to talk about, even though we're in the middle or towards the end of the off season, honestly. But thank you to those that watched on YouTube or supported on or listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you consume your content. Appreciate those. But welcome to episode 2. Let's go ahead and start with Jazz Chisholm. Now, I create content for MLB The Show. Some of you know that. And there was a new cover athlete announced, and that is Jazz Chisholm. There was a lot of criticism behind it because Jazz is not the superstar that we've had in the past, right? The Shohei Otanis, the Fernando Tatis, the Javi Baez, Aaron Judge, right? So, with that, he was announced as a cover athlete, but from the standard edition, collector's edition, and actually the greatest name I think they could have come up was, and it is, they did, captain's edition is Derek Jeter. It's an absolute just great name. Couldn't
You
have
can't
done it
miss
better.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing by the folks over at MLB The Show. But Jazz, right? And you start thinking about when it's the biggest baseball game in biggest baseball video game, is he the face of baseball, right? Like, that's the first thing that comes up. I think we can all agree that he's probably not the face of baseball, but he's very well liked. Now, initial thoughts when you saw that it was gonna be Jazz, the new cover athlete for MLB The Show 23.
Yeah. So I think right off the bat, and it's no disrespect, I don't think he's the face of baseball. I mean, I think that would be a huge reach, but I do like it. It almost feels like, at least when you look at MLB The Show, right? Like they're buying low and saying this guy's going to have a breakout year, and everyone's going to be like, wow, how did they know this, right? They're going to look like geniuses. But he's 25. He's moving to center field. He's got flair. People like him. He got voted into the All Star game. And he played 60 something games last year. And if you look at his stats for that time, the projections, he was getting close to 30 home runs and 100 RBIs over 162 games. Now, I know it's tough to say that, and I don't like doing that because you go through slumps. Maybe that was the best 60 game stretch he was going to have. Um, but I really like it. I like the confidence that he has going straight to center field, saying he's going to be a top 5 center fielder. Who's to say he's not? I mean, I can't give it to him right away. Do you think he's going to be a top 5 center fielder year 1?
So I think before we get there, right? I love the confidence. I love the choice. He's definitely a fan favorite because if not, he wouldn't have been voted in by the fans to the All Star game, right? So he's well liked. He brings passion to the game. Kid from the Bahamas. He's gonna inspire a lot of people and kids.
Right.
So I think it's a great decision. Now, during the MLB The Show announcement, they had him there. They interviewed him and they asked him about moving to center field. And he said, yeah, I mean, I was ready to do it. I told them I'm ready. I will be a top 5 center fielder. When we look at what he's done, he has a lot of speed, right? So Gene Segura wasn't moving in center field. Luis Arias wasn't moving in center field. So if anybody can make the change from that, from the Marlins roster, has to be Jazz. The only problem is that he has not played center field, and that's a big issue.
It's a big problem. Yeah.
It's not an easy transition to make from second base to center field. However, again, if somebody can do it on that squad, it's gonna be Jazz. So let me ask you, where do you rank Jazz among the top center fielders in the game. Obviously, he says he's going to be, and he can be, and he will be a top 5 center fielder, but can Jazz Chisholm really be a top 5 center fielder this year?
So originally, when I think about it, center field is a premier position, right, in baseball. I mean, you think of it almost as a shortstop. You think of it as one of those, you get a good center fielder, your team's in good shape. You look at the top 5 center fielders right now, and it doesn't really blow you away. I mean, the best player in baseball, arguably, is a center fielder, Mike Trout. From there, the list really goes down. Julio Rodriguez looks like to me, he's cemented at number 2. Not a huge sample size, but looks like he's going to be there for years to come. After that, it gets murky. I mean, is Brandon Nimmo the 3rd best center fielder in the world?
No, that's your hat talking. That's your hat talking. For those not watching,
who do you have number 3?
So the same thing that you said about Julio can be said about Michael Harris Jr., right?
That is very true.
Michael Harris II. He had a very productive rookie year over at the AL East. That you just so you're flat out ignoring Michael Harris. I don't know. It's your Mets bias might be
coming in. Ignoring him. I'm saying there's an argument to be made. I mean, even then, Michael Harris is a rookie. Yeah. Who, if you have him as Julio, the 3rd best center fielder, if you have him, that position's still not crazy deep because then you have, Buxton is in that list based off what he does for less than 100 games a year. But is it fair to hold that against him? I feel like normally it's not, but when it's 3 years in a row that he's playing under 100 games,
you have to.
It hurts you, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think so. Buxton, skill-wise, it's probably my 2nd best center fielder, but the availability, you got to be available in order to produce on the field, right? And that's his biggest issue. If he's healthy, he's an MVP candidate. No questions asked. We saw that this year. He's up there with amongst the best. So I do have Mike Trout number 1. I do have Julio number 2. I have Michael Harris number 3 and Buxton number 4. And this is when it's like wide open. Obviously, the Mets signed Brandon Nimmo, but is he going to be a center fielder? I know they got Marte as well. You probably know a little bit more than me.
Oh, I mean, he's been cemented at center. And I'm honestly, and you know this, I've never been the biggest Brandon Nimmo fan, to be honest. Like, I understand the stats. I understand he's an on-base machine. But I wasn't even saying it as, wow, look how good he is. He's potentially the 3rd best center fielder. I was saying more so when you look at someone like Jazz Chisholm, who's to say Jazz Chisholm is not a better center fielder than Brandon Nimmo next year, which puts him right in the top 5, right? Because 5, like you said, 5 is wide open. And that's even if Buxton is healthy. That's even if the 2 rookies, Michael Harris, Julio Rodriguez, come in and have, big years. 5 is wide open. I mean, you start looking at Brian Reynolds, right?
That's
who had a really good year. Yeah, I mean, he had a really good year, but it's not like right field, right? Where you say, I mean, it's just a slaughterhouse in right field all the way up until number 10. Yeah. So I think he obviously has the athleticism. He's 25. If you look at it and say it's going to take him a year and a half to really get good at center field, okay. That's fine. I mean, he'll probably hunt some balls down just based on pure athleticism. Once he starts getting the reads, once he starts learning the actual position.
And that's the thing.
I think it's great.
I think it's the defense side of things where obviously it's going to take him a little bit, right? There's going to be some bumps on the road when it comes to that. But offensively, it should not affect his offensive game. He's going to have that, right? Like last year, his OPS was 860. Obviously, 241 plate appearances, but that's solid, right? I do have Brian Reynolds as my number 5 center fielder. I think the Pirates offered him, like a 6-year, $75 million deal in the offseason, and he was like, no, because he's worth more like 150 or 200 because he's that good. Switch hitter center fielder that can basically 5-tool guy. And when we look at this list, there's not many of those, right? So that's the reason why Brian Reynolds is probably like, I'm not taking this money. Jazz will probably be around, I say, again, I got Trout, I got Julio, I got Michael Harris, I got Buxton, obviously a big question mark there health-wise. And then Brian Reynolds there as my top 5. But then I have Jazz probably around 7 or 8, definitely top 10. And like you said, right fielder
And
might
he
be a
hasn't
little
played
bit,
an inning.
and he hasn't played an inning.
Played an inning out there.
And that just goes to show how kind of like weak of a position after being a little bit top heavy is that center field position there.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I mean, I've told you, I like the Marlins. I mean, they're in a monstrous division, which is tough for them. But if they were in another division, I think you could give them more of a shot. I think I think they can be a 500 team. Is that crazy? Can they be a 500 team in the East?
I think it'll be close, right? They're going to play each other a lot. The top 3 teams in the NL East are very good, so they're going to have to face them a lot. So I think that's where, I don't know the over-under where Vegas have them, which every time Vegas have an over-under is right on. But I expect it to be somewhere around 80. If it's 81, I would probably take the under, somewhere around 78, 77, 78. Because, again, Sandy had an amazing year last year. Cy Young, obviously. They lost Pablo Lopez. I really don't know how much you add with Luis Arraez. Again, there's still some pieces missing there offensively. I still have them at the 4th place team, but around 78 to 80 wins is reasonable.
Right. I'll take them against a lot of other divisions' 4th place team. I guess is how I would look at it.
There might be the best 4th place team in baseball, right?
100%. Kind of a backhanded compliment to the Marlins, but you guys are going to be the best 4th place team in baseball. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Jazz does. I mean, if he puts together a big season, it's going to be, he's fun. I think a lot of people want to see baseball heading in the direction that he takes it. And so that's going to be awesome to watch.
He's fast, right? So he's going to be covering a lot of ground. He has a little bit of an arm, right? Maybe, that's yet to be seen. He played second. I don't know how big of an arm. He's in the 23rd percentile.
Yeah, we actually don't know that.
On Baseball Savant, they have him in the 23rd percentile. So that's not elite, but maybe he's working on it, right? I guess we'll see. I love the fact that he jumped on the opportunity and he's not afraid of the moment. And that right there just says that he's willing to put in the work, get better each and every day. And again, we'll kind of see what happens,
Yeah, it's a good storyline to watch, especially for the Marlins. Gives you something. Now you have Chisholm in center field dominating, or not dominating, hopefully, for them, seeing a new center fielder that will play there for a while. You get Sandy on the bump. And, it'll be a good storyline, kind of keep Marlins fans invested. I mean, just to see how it plays out.
And talking about storylines, there's going to be new rules in Major League Baseball. And just call me the transition king at this point, because that was a great transition. A lot of new rules that are definitely going to impact baseball and maybe the game, how it's played. We'll talk about that in a second, I guess. But there's 3 major rules changes, I think, when we look at what is being implemented in the major leagues. I will say, a lot of people kind of have question marks about some of them. We went to a minor league game last year. The score was like 13-12 in 11 innings. It was a back and forth game. There was a timer, and the game lasted like 2 hours and 40 minutes. It was amazing. No downtime.
If you have any doubts, if you have any doubts about this, I won't say this often, just trust us on this. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, we would see a pitch get thrown, there'd be a play, we'd talk about it for 5 seconds, you'd look, and the pitcher was going into his windup. Yeah. It was absolutely terrific, and you didn't feel like you were missing any part of the baseball experience or anything like that. It didn't feel like it ruined the game, or you were, it was nothing negative about it, to be honest with you. And I'm a little hesitant when it comes to rule changes. It was just the pace of play was great.
It didn't feel rushed, right? I feel like in the last few years, we've seen pitchers kind of like take longer and just extend and taking even a minute in between pitches. There's no need for that. So there's going to be a pitch timer. Pitch timer is going to be 15 seconds when nobody's on base, up to 20 seconds when runners are on. If a pitcher violates that timer, then it's an automatic ball. If the hitter violates his timer, it's an automatic strike. I cannot wait to see some of these reactions. Obviously, I'm guessing the umpires will be the one to implement this kind of timer violations. So that's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to speed up the game. pitchers are going to be limited to 2 pickoff attempts, basically, right? The third pickoff attempt at a base runner, you have to get him out. If not, the runner will advance to the next base. We're definitely going to have more stolen base attempts, I would imagine. Runners will be able to be more aggressive. Aside from that, the bases are going to be 3 inches bigger, so it's going to be from a 15-inch base to an 18. So I think baseball is trying to push the Ricky Hendersons, right? Come out, steal bases. Why not? Why not? Let's move it.
Right.
There's no need to throw the first 15 times just because you know the guy's running, I guess, right? So I think that's what they're trying to cut down on. And the other big one is obviously the shift, right? There's going to be some shift restrictions. We're done looking at this third baseman going all the way to shallow right field to field ground balls that Joey Gallo and Cody Bellinger are hitting that way. I think that's going to be very interesting when it comes to the hitters, right? You won't have to think a whole lot. The restrictions means the shortstop and third baseman are going to have to stay on their side of second base, so on the left side on the infield. And the first baseman and second baseman are going to have to stay on the right side of the infield. Nobody can be touching the outfield grass. What is your initial thought on this all, I guess, new rules? Which one are you excited about? Which one do you think one of them is not going to work? Which one are you scared of? Talk to me.
I'm not scared of any of them.
Good.
I actually like most of them. Initially, I did not think that the pitch clock would have or much of an impact on the running game until they talked about the 2 throws over. And I started looking at it, and it's very interesting because I got a little nerdy. In the minor leagues, the stolen base percentage went up 11 points last year.
That's a lot.
Which there's some front offices out there, if you're trying to win games, that are going to tell their faster players, if they throw over once, go.
Yeah.
If they throw over twice, you're really going. You know what I mean? You can get a lead so big if, you're going on first contact, and that's going to be interesting. I think it probably takes a little bit of time to see how the pitchers and the base runners adapt to that. But you start getting some small ball teams maybe that are playing well, and it's going to be interesting to see if they're going all the time. I don't expect it to be that insane. But you get a guy like Trey Turner, one, you do have to throw over to keep him close, but you can't really do it all. He's going, right?
If you throw twice, does that mean he can take however many lead he wants, whatever big of a lead he wants, and just be as aggressive and force you to throw that third time and automatically, I don't think he'll count as a stolen base, but he would advance to second or third depending on where he's at.
Right.
So that's going to be very interesting. I think my initial thought is going to be like maybe they'll start off slow and we'll see them adjust throughout the year and, maybe become more aggressive as the year goes on. But
if it's a strategy that they try out or not try out, but, the analytics departments kind of take the first half of the year to see how it's really playing out. And they're saying, our stolen base percentage is up 10%. Well, that's huge.
Yeah,
that's absolutely huge. And so I think it also goes into, we were saying the robot umps are going to get rid of the catcher position. Well, it's probably going to help to have a catcher who can throw. So maybe not completely. The base size, I think, is a non-factor, to be honest with you. I don't know how much of a difference it makes. When they talk about first base and the player safety, I don't know why they don't bring the 2 bases that you had in Little League. To be completely honest with you. There's one in fair territory, one in foul territory. If you're actually trying to get rid of, the players spraining their ankles and that sort of thing, then I don't see why not. And obviously the big one is the shift. I don't remember baseball without the shift, to be honest with you. I know it existed.
It's been a while.
I know that I played it like that. But it's like out of my memory. Like I'm very excited, like you said, for Joey Gallo to rope one to right field when he's hitting 110 at the All-Star break and to watch it go through. Just expecting someone to be out there and being like, oh, he got a hit. And then it'll be interesting for the contact guys to see, the guys that can go opposite field and all that, just poking holes into it again, and then seeing what weird alignments they come up with still. Yeah. Because they will defensively, they still will have within the boundaries, they're going to figure out some sort of way to get as much of a shift as they can.
And,
So I think that'll be interesting as well.
and I think it's interesting when you mention when we talk about the shift, we obviously talk about the big power lefty hitters, right? The
Hmm.
Gallos and the Bellingers that maybe their average should have been higher and they should have been
Right.
better because they've been hitting there. Well, make adjustments. Now they won't have to think about that. But recently, I think it was an interview that came out yesterday, the day before yesterday. I'm sorry, I don't remember, but it was Jeff McNeil talking about I like it. I'm a pull hitter. But I had to force myself to go the other way. We're talking about a batting champion, by the way. I
Yeah.
had to force myself to go the other way because that's where they really weren't there. And I had to make them kind of like put your defenders all over the place. Now he's gonna be able to probably play more freely.
Yep.
Again, he won the batting title, 326 batting average. We had 11 hitters hit 300 in the MLB in 22. My initial thought is that we see that number higher. I don't know how much higher, but I have to say at least somewhere between 15 and 20. And when we talk
It
about
has to.
a jump between going from 11 to 15 and 20, I mean, that's a big jump if you look at percentage wise. If you had to pick a number, how many people you think or how many players you think are going to hit 300 this year?
I think it will be over 20.
You think it'll be
I
20?
think,
Okay.
yeah, I think it doubles. Um, because like you said, I think a lot of guys aren't thinking that, a lot of these balls hit into the shift are not, squibblers, little ground balls. A lot of them are good contact. And so I think that helps them out. But not only that, how many guys are going from 280 to 290, right? How many guys are going from 260 to 270? I mean, we remember when a good batting average was 280 and above, right? And now we've kind of looked at it as if you hit 240, 250 with some pop, you're a big part of the lineup.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe those numbers change again. Maybe 245 is a pretty bad average, going
Without this,
forward
yeah.
again. So it'll be interesting to see those stats of the people who are in the running for, MVP, All-Star that, we're looking at them as having really good years. Where do their stats line up? But it interesting what you said about McNeil, his mindset. Does someone like him start hitting maybe more home runs, right?
Exactly.
Because he's like, I can pull the ball now. Does that translate into something else and players like him? So I'm sure you don't want to overthink it, but we'll see how it kind of plays out. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Speed the game up, make it better, make it a faster game with the stolen bases, not just time wise, but the play on the field.
I'm also curious about the pitching, right? We've seen or we've heard about the pitchers making adjustments because of the or pitched for the shift. There's
Yes.
not going to be a shift, right? There's going to be some restrictions. I'm sure somebody's going to be playing up the middle, probably. But what are the pitchers going to do? How are they going to adjust? Are they going to start pitching more outside to these lefties to see if they can actually, have the third baseman and shortstop make some plays, or
Yep.
instead of pitching for their advantage, for the hitter's advantage. So I think that's going to be very interesting. As far as the timer, going back to the timer a little bit, on average, games were 26 minutes faster in the minor leagues last year. So that's a big difference.
It's
That's
crazy.
we're in the East Coast and we have games starting at 10:30 that go until 1:30 and 2 a.m. 30 minutes is a big difference. So I'm
It's
all
huge.
for it.
It starts at 7. You turn it off at 9:30. You go to bed. Now, now that we're getting older and we tell each other it's eighth inning, we're like, "What a great game!" And I am falling asleep.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we don't have to deal with that. It will be fun to see the first pitcher that absolutely loses his mind. Like a Max Scherzer or something like that, just going ballistic. And it'll be interesting in the playoffs or down the stretch with a big moment. You know, pitch com's not working. They step off 3, 4 times. What do you do now?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Oh.
So before, it'll be an interesting change with the new rules. But before we see the new rules, the WBC is going to be played, and it will be played with traditional rules. It'll be the last time we see the traditional rules. The rosters. We were talking about this. We're big on the WBC. No, I mean, we're fired up for it. We follow it. We're going to be talking about it going forward. Some issues with the rosters. We're seeing that potentially the Dominican Republic may be affected more, right? A lot of their players potentially not being allowed to play. And I'm not saying it just for the Dominican Republic, but is this a problem, do you think, for the WBC with teams saying, yes, you can play, no, you can't play? Should they have that right? Should they not? Is it going to really hurt the WBC? What's your take on the rosters? Do you have a solution? Are you bummed out about it? What's your feeling?
I am bummed out. I think I want to see the WBC grow and be the same size. Obviously, it's not, the World Cup is different. It's the soccer is the number one sport in the world, played by
Right.
7 billion people, right? So baseball is not going to get there. But you have the best players in the World Cup, and I think that's part of the reason why it's such a big event. You need to have the best players compete at this high level with a lot of stake in the World Baseball Classic if you want it to grow. I understand it from a business perspective, from the owner saying like, well, I just made a $315 million investment in Trey Turner. I don't want him to go out and play and get hurt. The thing is that players get hurt. Injuries are part of the sport. I get it. You try to limit those, but we're trying to grow it. I want to see the World Baseball Classic get to the point where you can actually use the World Baseball Classic accomplishments into a Hall of Fame case, right? We've seen
Yes.
Argentina just won the World Cup, and you say Messi have won, I don't know much about soccer, but he won 7 La Liga. He won this Balón de Oro and a World Cup. If we get to that level in baseball where we have like, whatever, Carlos Correa, is he a Hall of Famer? He won 2 titles. He won this many Gold Gloves, and he won a World Baseball Classic, or he was the MVP on a World Baseball Classic. Imagine if it gets to that. And I think in order to get to that, you got to have the best players play and battle it out. Obviously, if anybody can recover from this, is the Dominican Republic. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
The Dominican Republic can have team A, B, and C, and team C would probably still make it to the finals. But that's not the point. The point is that you want the best players, and I think, especially when the best players want to play for their country, right? I don't know what are the. I thought at some point I've heard that the teams could not tell a player, to play or not. They can just basically, hey, we really don't want you to play. Like
we really
don't
want you to play.
Especially, and it's because also it's before spring training. There's a lot of factors, right? Your body's it's not during the middle of the year.
Well, it's in the middle of spring training, right? Don't they report for spring training? But I do get your point.
It's
before, ramping up. Yeah.
Exactly, especially for pitchers. And I think that's why, maybe for Team USA, we see the pitchers, not the biggest names there, but I want to see the biggest and best names go at it. That's what's going to help it grow, and that's what's going to help it even better. We already have to wait 4 years for every WBC to come back. So wait to see teams not at their full strength.
Yeah.
I think it will be a disadvantage for us.
I think the WBC has done a better job than I even thought of growing quickly, which I love. And I don't want baseball to get in its own way right now. Does that make sense? Like, they have done good. This tournament has taken off. People watch it. The ratings are good. The players are excited for it. The fans are excited for it. Again, you're going to Miami to watch the game, right? We know those games are going to be sold out. Marlins don't sell out stadiums. The WBC is selling out. My heart, I am with you 100%. It has to be big. From an ownership perspective, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. The WBC doesn't matter at all. I mean, they're not paying you. We're paying for you. For you to be a part of this organization. If you get hurt in spring training, that's fine. We'll take that on. We'll say, it was our fault. It wasn't our fault. We ramped you up too quick, whatever it may be. If you get hurt here, but that's like getting hurt off the job, technically. And I mean, I think when you look at it, there are pros, right? I feel like really good at bats you're having there, right? Mike Trout faces Shohei Ohtani, right? Those are good at bats. He's going to be ready for opening day. But I understand ownership not wanting some players to play. As much as it stinks, I don't have a real, you should let them play because of this. I don't have a good answer. I can't judge them for it. but man, I wish we could fix that. I
So,
really, really do.
and I think that's where I have questions, right? Because it's like the owners, or the I guess the front office are the ones deciding who plays or suggesting don't play or whatnot. If you're, let's say we're running the Mets, right?
Oh, I
And
could only dream of it.
yeah, wait, let's dream,
Oh, me
let's
and
dream,
Stevie.
let's
Sorry.
dream. Uncle Stevie, tell us, what do you guys think about the WBC? There's rumors, and we'll have the full rosters are going to be revealed February 9th. So we're a couple days away
Yes.
from getting the full roster. But I don't think Starling Marte can play, but Jeff McNeil can play. So how? Because if you say you cannot have one player scared because of injury or whatever the case may be, then none of the players would be allowed. Or how do you divide that? Where's the line? Is it just your big contract? You want the young guys just go and get experience? That's where I come into, like, and again, 100% I get from the business perspective. I'm not an owner. If I was, I would probably at least second guess myself, or let's talk about it. Some restrictions of some way. I
Right.
don't know if it can be like, hey, if you get hurt in the WBC, it's not up to me. You're putting your contract at risk, something like that. But how do you decide who gets to play and who doesn't? I think if you say yes to one, you have to say yes to all.
Yeah, so I think it seems that way. I get what you're saying. I imagine there's more intricacies than that,
Yep.
in the sense of I don't want, an old Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer throwing in the WBC. That's just the fact. I mean, Max Scherzer's arm has looked, truthfully, like it's barely hanging on from September on the last 2 years. The last thing he needs is pressure innings in March, But I get what you're saying. Starling Marte, okay, maybe, and this is speculation, like you said, we don't know. But it's a bad look if you say Starling Marte can't play, Jeff McNeil can. Obviously, they know their players. Maybe sometimes they agree to that, right? Maybe it's not so much of, hey, Starling, you can't play. Maybe it's like, we don't think you should play. And he goes, yeah, probably not the best for me. Who knows? But it's not a level playing field right now, it seems like.
No.
And again, I wish I could sit here and come up with a great solution, but
I mean, we
I don't know.
have
And it's still star-studded, right? The rosters still are sick.
and that's exactly what I was gonna say. So number one, you got Shohei on a free agent year. He's gonna be playing for Japan, probably pitching and hitting. You got Mike Trout, who's on a contract for 450 million, whatever it is, for 13 years. You got Trey Turner, recently signed for over $300 million. You got Paul Goldschmidt coming off his MVP year, who's gonna be playing, or we're thinking, right?
Yeah.
These are the names that have been confirmed or shown interest. So there's still a lot of big names. There's still a lot of big investments that are going to be playing. I'm not saying it's going to be a bad World Baseball Classic. I'm just saying I wish everybody would just play. And obviously that's might be a little selfish. I'm being a fan.
We're being 100%
I'm thinking about
selfish.
myself.
But the fans, we do, not to pat ourselves on the back too much here, but we're the reason that MLB is successful and where it's at. So, maybe the WBC and putting all these players in, maybe it actually pays off for these owners in the long run. Maybe it does grow the game. There's a lot of different angles you can look at it, but it is a tough decision. And it'll be very interesting to go over the WBC rosters, because we know that there's going to be people left out for a lot of teams, not just the DR, not just the US, that if they had full rosters would probably be a lot better.
Yeah, and I just find it interesting, right? Like, obviously, again, the rosters won't be announced for another couple of days, but the big news in the offseason was Carlos Correa and his ankle. He's going to be playing for Team Puerto Rico after signing a 6-year deal, $200+ million. It can be whatever, 7 for 275, whatever the case may be. He's going to be playing. So if he can play, anybody can play. But again, it's going to be up to the owners. It's going to be up to them. We still have to kind of like wait and see what's going to happen until the final rosters. But I'm just worried. I'm just a little worried that these reports are coming out. And
Carlos Correa better not get hurt in the WBC.
oh boy. Oh,
If he hurts his ankle, he better just grab the other ankle and say, no, it's not the one they were worried about. Because that would be a tough look, and that would set the WBC back. That would set him back.
everything. It
That
was
would be a disaster.
that.
I mean, I don't think that'll happen, but that's worst case scenario.
Yeah, yeah, and it would break the internet. It would definitely break the internet. And something that kind of broke the internet today, I guess, it was announced that Carlos Beltran is now back with the Mets. So Carlos Beltran was hired in 2000, what, 18, 19 as the Mets manager. Then or 20, I think it was. Then, the whole scandal with the Astros in 2017 came out. He was a player with the Astros with the cheating scandal. The Mets let him go before he was able to manage his first game. Took a year or two off. Then he went to the Yankees and worked for Yes Network as an analyst there for the Yankees. And he just left the Yankees and went back to New York on what they're saying, a front office role. As a Mets fan.
He came home. He came home.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He came home. Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead. As a Mets fan.
He was in New York, so he was home already, right? But as a Mets fan, what does this mean? What does this mean? Like, is he gonna replace Buck after a couple of years? Buck is kind of like, on the older side, I guess. Does this mean he's just, and again, I think Beltran had a lot of, I guess, bad rep when he was behind the mic. I don't think he's a guy that should be behind the mic. Like, A-Rod is great at the booth and behind the mic. Carlos Beltran is not. Carlos Beltran is more of a connecting with players. Obviously, the fact that he's bilingual probably helps connect with players easier. He was a manager or selected as a manager for a reason. He was a leader, especially in the back end of his career. That just goes to show his leadership. So he has a lot of baseball knowledge, which is why they're probably bringing into the front office, right, in New York. But as a Mets fan, what's your initial thought, and what does this mean for the future?
So as a Mets fan, I really don't know because they said front office and they gave no specification yet. We don't know exactly what he's doing. I mean, is he an assistant to the GM, Billy Epler? Is he doing something in scouting? I mean, who really knows? I like it. I like having him in the organization. I'm glad he came back. I think it's kind of weird. Like we were talking, someone takes your job away because of the cheating scandal. I mean, it didn't come out of nowhere, but they essentially rescinded their job offer to him. And he still came back. So obviously he wanted to be there. The Mets kind of wanted him there, which I like. I don't know what it means. It is interesting. Is he a manager in waiting under Buck Showalter?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I would say yes if he was in the dugout somehow. Yeah. But front office, who knows? Maybe he finds a home there. I mean, he's very young as well. And like you said, maybe he's not the most charismatic guy behind the mic and all that, but he does have a very good reputation in the clubhouse, on the field, in baseball. He could probably relate to the younger players, the Spanish guys, the American, I mean, everybody, truthfully. So it'll be interesting, but I think not as a Mets fan, just as a baseball fan in general, this feels a little bit like closure from the Astros scandal. Just a little bit. So if you look at the people that got punished for that, AJ Hinch, the Astros general manager.
AJ Hinch got a job the next day.
Literally next year.
Literally, after suspension.
No.
After suspension. But literally, as soon as the suspension was over, he was signing with Detroit.
Yeah, he had a vacation and he knew he had something coming.
Yeah.
Beltran technically didn't get suspended, but this was a sort of punishment inflicted on him. And so now he's back. Cora's the only one left, right?
Yeah, Alex Cora, I mean, he got a job too, right? He won a title there, but he got suspended and came back. They brought him back, and I thought that's what something, when I saw Boston, do that, I thought the Mets were going to do that as well. Like, hey, this is too new. This is too hot. We're going to let you go. We'll bring you back later, right? Yeah, let it cool off. People are going to forget about it. People are never going to forget about this scandal, by the way. So I don't think it necessarily is closure. It might be closure on the Mets side of things, which...
I think it's moving on, though. You don't think so? Because even think of it this way. We talked last week about the Hall of Fame, right? And how Beltran maybe being punished a little bit by the voters. Now he's back in baseball. He gets his name out there. He's doing the interviews. I feel like we're slowly moving on, which I don't even know if we should.
Well,
it was pretty crappy what they did.
But That's
But I feel like we're moving on from this, and you could not disagree more, huh?
I cannot because like he came back to the same team that hired him as a manager. So they obviously liked him. Obviously, I think it was under a different ownership. This is Uncle Steve, probably
Wilpon.
Uncle
Yep.
Steve. Uncle Steve saying like, we need that guy back. I don't know why we let him go in the
Yeah.
first place. Um, I'm thinking more fans are not gonna forget about this. Obviously, anytime soon. And because I haven't seen it gone. I mean, obviously, it's less because that first time that the Astros went to Yankee Stadium, it was
Brutal.
dangerous. But
Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet. I like it. I think it's
Right.
good for the Mets that they're saying like, listen, I think baseball in general, as in like the front offices, leadership, managers, owners are saying we're done with this. At least on their side, they're saying they're done because everybody has had a second or third chance at coming back and kind of like redeeming
Yep.
themselves, and they were all good, right? So I don't know. I'm curious to see what's gonna happen. I'm curious to see the role. He could be just an advisor for all we know, but we
Yeah.
know Beltran just loves baseball. He wants to be a part of baseball, however he can. He has a Carlos Beltran Baseball Academy in Puerto Rico. He's trying to grow the sport however he can. So him staying in baseball somehow, it's only gonna help that.
100%. And I think teams that don't go after these people are kind of making a mistake in the sense of AJ Hinch going to the Tigers. Good on them, right? How else are the Tigers going to get an AJ Hinch at that time?
Yeah.
Truthfully, you have to get them kind of when their stock is down. And everyone's saying, "Oh, this guy was a part of something that we don't want to be associated with." Okay, we'll bite the bullet. Same thing with the Mets. They know he's been out since they didn't give him the management thing. He's coming back at some point. We'll take him now. Maybe a little earlier than other teams want to. We'll take him now because we feel that there's something he can add to the organization, and that's what happened. Same thing that we think is going to happen with Trevor Bauer, right? Whether you agree or disagree, there's a lot of teams that maybe would never be able to get Trevor Bauer that have to take a look at it and say, okay, this is the lowest his stock will ever be. Do we jump in and get him? And teams are always looking for value. And unfortunately, when you do something wrong, kind of the best value that you can be gotten at. And some teams are going to capitalize on that.
Yeah, obviously the stock dropped, and I think for Beltran always mentioned how being the Mets manager was kind of like the dream job, right? He played for the Mets. He loved New York. He loved playing for the Mets, even though he took that curveball down. Well, anyways,
Oh my
that was
God.
we're not talking about that.
Swing the bat.
But that's his dream job, right? Being a manager for the Mets. So maybe now him being in the front offices will open up opportunities for other teams unless the Mets tell him like, hey, let's just be patient. Let's take it a couple years down the road and then we'll bring you back. Again, we don't have all the information. So I'm curious to see how that plays out, but I'm excited to have him back in baseball. Not on the Yes Network. I don't count that necessarily in baseball,
Yeah,
but this is
that's media.
in baseball.
You're in media.
Yeah. So
No, it's exciting. So, yeah, that broke today, and we just saw it. So that was a good little add-on. Let's walk it off. Obviously, hot stove is a little bit cold. Pretty much everything is over. We're kind of coming up, truthfully, on pitchers and catchers and all that. What are you looking towards? What are you excited about? What do you kind of got your eye on during the next week or so?
I mean, during the next couple of days, I mentioned it. I'm looking forward to the WBC rosters being announced. We're starting to get some leaks at uniforms and hats. I'm very excited about the World Baseball Classic, but that rosters, I think we're gonna have a lot of, questions answered when we look at these rosters.
Yes.
Who was allowed to play? Who's gonna be in? Who's not gonna be in? There was a lot of things behind Acuna playing in Venezuela or for Venezuela. Is he gonna play? Is he not? There's a lot going on when it comes to the WBC rosters, and I cannot wait to see how that turns out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the big one.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised, to be honest with you. When we look at the rosters, like you said, there'll be some people that are left off that we would like to see, but I think we're going to take a look at it overall and say, it's going to be a pretty fun tournament. Probably the best rosters we've seen of any WBC. And we'll discuss it. We'll see what we're looking like.
I cannot wait. And again, episode 2, that will do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening to us. Again, make sure to check us out all social media. We got a YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple. What else? We got it all. We got it all.
We're there.
We're there.
Yep.
Baseball as intended. Search it. You'll find us. And again, until next week, and we're out.
See you next week.